more than females. And in those cases, as the theory of natural selection would predict, you do have that it is the male, not the female, who engages in offspring care.
Okay, so as an evolutionary biologist who has been involved in a lot of debates, and you're a professor, you have been asked the question, probably on your blog, probably a million times, and this is just a little off the topic, but it's still related. How do you answer the question? I mean, we all know how we answer the question about the meaning of life.
We were just discussing that earlier.
The meaning of, well, it's related. It's absolutely related.
So that is one, of course, it's a fundamental
It's a spandrel.
The believer wants to know.
The believer wants, well, everybody wants to know, right?
Right.
And that is one question where I think science actually has very little to say, for one thing. Although there are some aspects of science that certainly can inform us about questions and meaning. I think there you really go to philosophy. I really have to put my other hat on and answer as a philosopher. I do not think that there is any universal meaning of life. There is no meaning that applies to everybody and everywhere in all situations. Meaning is personal, and it is temporary. One of the things that most people that think about meaning seem to say is that unless something lasts forever, it's meaningless. That is, it seemed to me, a pretty obvious logical fallacy. It is simply not true. I mean, think about a simple example. Imagine, after we tape this show, we go out and go for a movie. And imagine that we see one of the best movies that we could possibly imagine, that we've ever seen. It's so good that we really don't want the movie to end. We would like another 10 minutes or another half an hour, another hour. And we will enjoy that extra hour, no question about it. I bet, however, that if the movie actually does keep going forever, day after day, month after month, year after year, no matter how good that movie is, you're going to get bored stiff and you're going to get out of the movie theater. It seems to me, analogously, and philosophers have made this point, that what makes life meaningful is precisely the fact that it doesn't go on forever. It is precisely the fact that it's limited in time. My relationships with my daughter, my relationship with my companion, and so on and so forth, with my family, are meaningful because I know that they do not last forever. If they did really last forever, then why put any energy in it at all? Why bother? You would get bored. That's just a human reaction. Given enough time, everybody gets bored about it, no matter how the original stimulus was interesting. So I do think that philosophers have thought about it quite a bit. We have a large and interesting literature in philosophy on the meaning of life from Aristotle on to contemporary philosophers. And it seems to me that it would be much more informative for people to look at that literature rather than the religious one.
But we all want to live forever. I mean, that's the popular wisdom, is that we want life after death. We want to live forever. We want to prolong life. We fight to stay alive at the very end.
I don't believe that for a second. Let me give you an example.
Good.
It's a fictional example, but I think it's appropriate. Douglas Adams was the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He wrote several books following the first one. In one of these minor sort of follow-up books, there is a secondary character, an alien, who is in fact a member of an immortal race. And this alien at one point lands on his spacecraft, on his flying saucer, lands on Earth, walks out of the spacecraft and goes right to the main character of the book, Arthur Dent, and addresses the character straight in, looking in his eye, and says, "Are you Arthur Dent?" And Arthur Dent is very excited that this alien came out of the flying saucer and knows him by name. He says, yes, I am. And the alien says, "Arthur Dent, you're an idiot," or something to that effect. Turns around, gets on the flying saucer and flies away. And Arthur Dent says, what was that all about? It turns out that this race of aliens who live forever had done everything that could possibly be done in the universe. They had discovered everything there was to discover. They entertained themselves in all possible ways you can possibly entertain yourself. So they were so desperate to avoid boredom that they decided that, the next thing we can do is to insult every sentient being in the universe in alphabetical order. I think that's what an eternal life will get you.
Right.
Well, that's a lot to think about.
Well, yeah, but everybody...
That's a lot. That's fascinating. That's a lot to I don't know what to say. I mean, I have no idea how to respond to that.
The fact that everybody wants to live forever is part of that is, again, part of the result of the evolutionary tendency of living things to want to preserve their own existence.
That's
right. And that innate need to survive has nothing to do with the philosophical question of the meaning.
As Woody Allen put it, I don't want to be immortal through my works. I want to be immortal through not dying. And, yes.
So the meaning of life is we give our lives its meaning, but the purpose is procreation from a biological standpoint.
From a biological standpoint,
Biological?
that's it.
Your
That's the best.
purpose is to reproduce,
Well,
procreate, and
I would say, again, from a biological perspective, the thing about human beings is that we have also this interesting ability to imagine other possible purposes and to make up other purposes for our life. Steven Pinker, who is a cognitive scientist, wrote this wonderful book a few years ago called How the Mind Works. And he has a very interesting example. He discusses the biological basis of all sorts of human behaviors, but in the end he says, you know what, but you can transcend that sort of behavior. He says, I made the decision of devoting my life to my friends and to my books and to my career and not to have offspring. And if my genes don't like it, they can go and jump into the lake.
socially responsible atheists,
That's right.
people.
Right.
Honestly, and they're the ones who should be reproducing more and more. But we're so socially conscious that the others are out. You know, there's a word for the groups that outbreed or that breed lots. It's biological colonialism, and they, you know, and they're anyway. We're down to 30 seconds, and I didn't get to cover anything that I wanted to in this show. These are fascinating
come back.
discussions. Will
I'll be
you
here.
come back again
I will be
next
here.
week? Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Please, thank you for watching and for listening on the podcast. We'll see you next week on the Atheist.